Please, God, grant me just one more ounce of strength. I won't run from the bad stuff anymore. I'll stop using Shoko as an excuse. Starting tomorrow, I'll look everyone in the face. Starting tomorrow, I'll do things right. And if I'm not even allowed tomorrow, take me instead. I botched the last line, but that's okay because there's a lot more lines to come.
You know, I feel like this whole manga is about botching things, so that works.
That's a great segue. I just botched that segue too. So I suck at segues if you can't tell by now. 7 episodes in. But today is the silent voice episode where we will be doing our book club review on, or not review, but talk about A Silent Voice, which we have all completed in its entirety. Jaden finished about 45 minutes ago, but hey, it still counts.
He made it in
we
time.
all finished. We're at the finish line. We
Monster.
passed it.
I won't be
exactly.
asked stupid ass questions.
Yeah,
Can't
we
answer.
won't have an interrogation session at the end of the episode. But anyway, speaking of Jaden, what have you been doing this week, Jaden?
So, once again, I was actually on spring break last week, so went back to school this week. My scene design project, been working on that, so almost done. Knock on wood. We should be done by next week, if nothing goes wrong. Really haven't watched any anime or manga or read anything else other than A Silent Voice. I have watched there's a series, a channel on YouTube called Jetlag the Game. If any of you guys are familiar with Wendover Productions and Half as Interesting, it's pretty much the host of those shows. Him, Sam, and his 2 writers, Adam and Ben, they do like a bunch of game shows, and they go like around the world. So like currently they have to try to get every European country in the Schengen zone. I think it's like season 13 at this point, because they do, I think it's like 2 seasons a year. But it's
Wow.
really fun.
That sounds interesting.
It is. It's probably like one of this every single time it ends.
What's
I
the
just can't
concept
wait.
again? I have like dial-up
they do
noises
like
going off
they
in
do
my
like
head.
different games. So like they did like hide and seek in Japan.
Okay, I get it.
They did one
I'm locked into
that they
what
had
you're
to
talking
do
about now.
they had to go from the northernmost point in the United States up in Alaska down to the southernmost point of the United States down in Florida.
I don't know why I was like,
And there's, like-
what, they're just bringing Wheel of Fortune to Japan?
No.
They don't got that there?
But they have so they have like a budget, and they can get more money by doing challenges and stuff like that. But definitely worth a watch. The episodes can
have
be
they
kind
played-
of long, but
I mean, I enjoy long form
I-
content more
I
than
think
short
this
form
season-
content nowadays. So
I know like last season it was like average like half an hour, 45 minutes. I think this season they've added like an extra 15 minutes to the episodes. But like you guys probably know Tom Scott, I think is his name. Yeah, he's actually in this season, which is pretty
Pretty
cool.
cool.
Yeah, so they got him to collab with them. So
Dang.
some
the
seasons
retired
they'll do like
YouTubers.
teams, where it's like they'll bring in a guest, and then some seasons where it just be like the 3 of them against each other, and then they'll just rotate
That's pretty
turns
cool.
on like who's running and the chasers.
Kind of like us.
Kind of, yeah, I guess.
They're like us, for real, for real.
Hosting the podcast.
But yeah.
And then you switch it
Let me
every
see what
week.
else. MLB The Show came out last weekend, so that's kind of what I've been playing mostly. And March Madness started this weekend, so I've
We
been
know.
really into that. It really started on Thursday, the night before, because we normally record on Fridays. So like I spent the whole day watching it from like 12 to 12, just watching March Madness. It's my
Jesus.
favorite time of the year when it comes to sports.
I feel like...
I mean, hey.
Oh.
That's all I was saying.
I mean, hey, fair. My bad. I feel like my maturity level has gotten pretty high with sports, where I can, like, even if I don't really care about it, I can find something to like about it. March Madness is one of those things I'm just like, bro, I still don't really fully understand what's even going on.
I make a bracket and then it's just game after game after game, but bracket failed on the first game, so back yours. Nah, I ain't making. It's like one
Not
in
your
9
season, not
point.
your season.
Nah, it's a 1 in 9.2 quintillion to get a perfect
Jesus.
bracket all the way through. No one's ever done it.
But you
Wow.
could be
I'll be
the
the
one.
first.
Okay, I guess
Well, no,
Logan's
not
gonna
this
steal
year.
your thunder. That's messed
Well,
up.
I can't do it this year.
Jaden. Oh, you're.
Yeah, I lost in the first game.
Lo, go back in time and just like make your own bracket.
Shit. Well, I'm gonna help Jaden with his bracket.
No. You gotta steal his thunder now. That's the
No,
energy
I don't
you
wanna
showed
steal
up
Thunder
with.
now. No, and not anymore. I'm changed like Ishida.
I see.
He's
Respectable.
changed for real, for real.
I'm reformed.
Maybe in the past
I
you would have
felt
done that, but now you're a new man.
Well then, Nate, what have you been up to or down to?
Honestly, just the usual stuff this week. Still with the video editing, still with the storyboarding. Nothing too crazy. Still having fun with Blue Sky. I've been I found some really cool indie recommend potential picks.
Prospects.
Yeah. Over
We'll
the
hear
course of
about
the
it
last
next
week.
episode.
That's true. It's true. But I've been having fun just interacting with people online that maybe I wouldn't have otherwise, and hey, it's been a good week. It's been a good week. Busy for sure. But I think at the end of last episode, I mentioned that we were just dropping the next chapter of Dragon Universe, and or that we had just dropped it.
Yeah,
This
it was
is
something like that.
yeah. This week, a week after we drop a chapter is usually the most important time to check analytics and stuff. So I've been keeping my eye on that. It's been doing pretty well. So I've got no
Nice.
complaints. I'm pretty happy.
Congrats.
Yep. What about you, Logue? What have you been up to?
Well, I have also been mainly just watching YouTube series and that. I've been catching up on Abroad in Japan's Wacky Wednesdays with Connor, or Sea Dog,
Oh yeah,
as everyone might know him.
one of Mel's
But yeah.
favorite YouTube personalities.
Oh, cool! I didn't know
Shout
that.
out Mel.
But yeah, he if they want something else to watch, then Abroad in Japan Wacky Wednesday episodes, they go on really, I don't want to say shitty adventures, but Chris, the runner, the showrunner for Abroad in Japan, the YouTube channel, he takes Connor on these really crazy excursions in Japan that are basically just not recommended for tourists to go on, either because they're way too expensive or they are bottom of the barrel, out in the middle of the woods. You would never want to stay here, or you might want to if you're cynical or, a masochist.
But they're not tourists.
Yeah, exactly. So they both live in Japan, and Chris has lived there for I think 15 years at this point, or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the most recent one that I watched, he took him to a train hotel, but it was literally just a boxcar, like a train boxcar, just a single one, out in the middle of nowhere, with no other buildings remotely close by, and you pay to sleep in a bed on a train. But it's not an operational train. It's just a train in the woods, and you sleep on it. There were other things in the video, but that was that was the thumbnail moment. Oh, I took Connor to, this train in the middle of nowhere, potentially to get jumped, but
It's
probably
Japan.
not because it's Japan. Exactly. So that's what I've been watching, and surprised you didn't bring it up, Nate, but Bleach Rebirth of
I was
Souls,
saving it for you.
banger game. A lot of people on Steam, I checked the reviews yesterday, it was mostly negative,
The
but
PC
it's-
port
it has a crashing
yeah.
problem. Yeah, the PC apparently has some crashing problems, but about 3 hours after launch they posted a discussion forum, and they were asking for people's specs and the situations in which the game crashes in. So they seem to be on top of it. But Nate and I, luckily, knock on wood, fingers crossed, have not had any issues with either of our game clients, and we were able to play.
Well, you had that one.
Matches yesterday.
You had that one time where your motion blur was like 40 years behind your actual character.
Yeah, it was creating ghosts of the entire screen, so it looked like there were just double everything. I was in like the Infinity Castle from Demon Slayer. There was just mirrors everywhere.
It was funny. It was funny, but we got that resolved.
Yeah,
and
but yeah, it's we had a pretty sick match with Ichigo versus Aizen yesterday, where we both resurrected
like twice,
and we're like two. Yeah, we resurrected twice, and we were about 30. No, not even 30. We were like 5% health each, and one of us, I won't spoil who, Nate, whiffed an attack. He missed his Kompaku, and I mean not Kompaku, his
whatever the kill shot is called.
The major, the kill shot move, and he whiffed that, and then I sidestepped him and freaking came out on top. But I was playing Aizen, so he had to work a lot harder than I did, that's for sure. So anyway,
I will have a whole episode where we talk about like anime fighters and like anime games in general, I think. But
that's a good topic.
I think it's on the list.
Yeah, I think it is on the list as well. If I haven't, I gotta update the list. But the Bleach game is I mean, we've only had one play session on it, but already like I genuinely have hope for the genre again after that. It is what I would have expected to come out when I was a kid, when I was playing like the Budokai games, and the like the Clash of Ninja games and stuff like that. It just like it feels like a return to form, like a full ass video game with no nonsense in it. It's very nice.
Yeah, it's almost like if you give the rights to a beloved franchise to an actual company that makes video games or has experience in that genre, they will probably make something good. Like CyberConnect 2 making Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. And most recently, Rebirth of Souls was Tamsoft, which made Melty Blood. And you can definitely see the influence in Rebirth of Souls. So, fighting game company making fighting game equal good. Jump Force equal bad. I don't know who Jump Force was made by, but
it has a cool concept.
I'm assuming it was not a like well reputable company. But who am I to say? I haven't done the research.
Fair.
But
you gotta be honest. It did have a cool concept.
It did.
It just didn't work out well.
So that's that for in my neck of the woods.
Well, some good small talk today.
Shall we?
The meat and potatoes.
Shall we move into, the big pot of stew boiling in the center of our campfire?
This is a really...
That's an analogy, right?
Yeah. This is a really this is a hard story to talk about in a podcast setting, I think, for a lot of reasons. One, I think this story means a lot of things deeply personally to a lot of people. And it deals with, I guess, if you haven't read or watched A Silent Voice, which I, as always, highly recommend, especially this one. This one is a life changer.
Oh yeah.
Just content warning. It does deal with subjects of suicide and depression, and bullying. So if that's something that might be a trigger for some people, go in with a little bit of caution, a little bit of hesitation. But I think if you do end up sticking with it and going through it, and you're able to manage to stomach those things, there's a great reward at the end of this very relatively short narrative. Actually, I was gonna say a long narrative, but I read this in about 2 days. I just kind of like...
I think I read it. I think I had 3 different sessions, but altogether it's probably like 2 days. Yeah.
I read like 30 chapters, and then I read the other 30 chapters.
Yeah, I remember my first session. I read the first 2 volumes. Then my second session, I read no 2 volumes, and then today's session, I think I read the last 4.
Fair.
Or 3 or 4, whatever it was.
my experience was the first 6 in one day, and then the last one 4 days later.
Yeah, that's all for me. I read the first 2, and then like I didn't read for like almost a week, and then
I think there was a
was
day
like, I gotta
apart
get
in
done.
mine.
But
But
even
We all
if you
finished.
even if you don't
We all
want to read
finished,
it,
yeah.
the movie.
oh, the movie. That'll be a talking point in of itself, but the movie is very good.
I haven't seen the movie, so
Well, we're watching it after.
Yeah, we gotta. I
Because
wanted to watch the movie before like recording the podcast, but I finished up like a little too late to really find time to do it reasonably and like give it the attention it deserves. So unfortunately I couldn't, but I've watched the movie like 2 or 3 times already in my life, so I think my memory will serve me well enough in the discussion ahead. But
Yeah,
no, take the floor.
I was gonna say I have watched the movie 4 times by myself and 2 times with other people, and everyone that I've watched it with has always said that it was a really good movie. Although shout out Justin, he said it was slow, but no, he also said it was very good. But it's just
It didn't have
moves
good
at a
pacing.
slower
It does.
pace because it's
It does.
well, it has good pacing, but you can't go in expecting it's going to be a shonen anime film because
yeah, true.
prior to that, he had watched the Demon Slayer movie in theaters and Jujutsu Kaisen 0 in theaters with us.
Oh,
So
yeah.
after that, he probably thought like, "Oh, anime movie, big fights, action sequences," because he doesn't watch
Yeah.
anime on his own time. So he probably went in thinking it was
Maybe
going to
another
be
one of those. Yeah.
something similar, and then he was like, "Oh, this is actually a really good story. It wasn't a bunch of fights 24/7." So understandable, but every time I've watched a movie by myself, I cry probably 4 times, and I can count the time, or I know which scenes
See,
I do it at.
I didn't
after
cry
reading
reading it.
Yeah, I didn't even like.
Yeah, read.
I had that
Oh,
like
well,
just
actually.
little shock, but then that was like it. Like I didn't really.
You're gonna be an interesting one this podcast, I think, because this is your first experience with a silent
Yeah.
voice. Me and Logan are like silent voice veterans, so
And I will say I cried once during the
really,
reading.
and
it was
I got hit in the
because-
feels for sure, but in different ways.
Yeah. I cried once, and it was because of a scene that I wasn't expecting because it wasn't in the movie. But I really wish they put it in the movie. But I understand why they didn't, because it probably would have presented some issues with the rating. Because the movie does deal with the suicidal topic as well. And the major climax of the movie obviously is what it is, and we'll get to that. But they didn't specifically say any suicidal thoughts. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, Ishida wasn't, "Oh, I'm going..." Well, he did say, "I planned to
thought-
jump off the bridge," or whatever, but...
Since this is at the start of the movie in the start of the manga, could we start with this? Because this is actually, I know I said I think my memory will serve me, but this was one of the things I read and I was like, is this different? Doesn't he actually go to attempt suicide at the start of the
Yes.
movie? Because he doesn't do it in the
Yes.
manga. Okay.
Well, actually, I could be remembering wrong as well, but either he goes to the bridge and then he doesn't actually
No,
jump
there
off, he just
definitely
stands on
is
the
a
side.
scene where he goes to a bridge. Because that's also in my
Well,
memory
him
bank. Because I was
and
like,
the
I
other
feel like
two-
that happened.
They go to the bridge, but it was just to jump in the water and then.
No, that's not the bridge
No,
we're talking
there's a-
about.
there's a
In
scene
the
in the
movie,
movie.
it's a completely different scene where he's alone and he imagine. Yeah, you're right. He does go there because when he's sitting on
manga.
and he's like slouching and he has his elbow and like his head resting on his elbow, and then he dreams, or not dreams, but he thinks about climbing up on the ledge, and then he like comes to the realization like, "Oh, that's just what I'm thinking about, not what I'm actually doing."
Yeah.
And then he walks away. So he does attempt it, but or he at least thinks
Yeah,
very
we
deeply
see
about
more
attempting
about it in the movie than the manga does, at least at the start. Then
Yeah.
the manga and the movie start entirely different too, but I don't want to Logue, did you want to finish your thought before I cut in there?
About what?
I feel like you were saying something about the topic of like the heavier themes, but maybe
No. I was basically done. I was just gonna say that Ishida attempts. He talks about attempting it in the manga, but he doesn't actually.
I think you were talking about a scene that made you.
Oh, the movie.
Emotional while reading, and I cut you off before you mentioned what scene it was. Unless you want to save that for.
Oh, you want me to mention it? I was gonna save it.
Yeah, save it.
A pretty major scene.
Okay.
So.
I guess to wrap up this early portion, all this is to say this is a very linear story. Compared to our first book club's read of Monster, there's a lot less to like psychoanalyze, and there's not really a major mystery going on. It's just, A happens, then B happens, then C happens, then D happens, and it's more of a character study than it is a major world building experience, which is fine. I think this author does very well with what they do with these characters, and I honestly, again, this has been life-changing for me, like, genuinely. The first time I saw the movie, that completely recontextualized a lot of things for me, so they did something right. Saying that, you might have noticed a pause. It's because I realized we forgot to get our ducks in order here. We did not share who the author was, nor any other additional info about A Silent Voice. So let me get that out of the way real quick before we dive into the meat and potatoes, or the campfire stew, whatever the fuck Luke was talking about a little bit ago.
The pot of stew and the boiling on the campfire.
So we'll be jumping between the manga and the movie, I'm sure, throughout the entire episode. But just for the sake of the book club, I'm going to only share details about the manga right now. The manga was written by Yoshitoki Oima. Oima. I might be saying that incorrectly. I'm sure I am. I apologize. It ran from August 7th, 2013 to November 19th of 2014. Apparently in Weekly Shonen Magazine, which is nuts. That's a crazy... Yeah. I don't think that's Shonen Jump. Kodansha.
No, that's...
It's... Kodansha and Shonen Jump are, like, tied at the hip,
big.
though, from what I understand.
They're the two big.
Yeah.
So the big three, they have the big two.
So that is kind of nuts that it got... I would have expected this to be a Monster situation where it got published in a bit of a smaller magazine and then kind of took off from there. But no, that's cool. Also, 2013, 2014, I was going to say that's not that long ago. That's over 10 years.
11 years.
Jesus Christ.
That is
11.
10 years ago.
Oh my
Oh,
god.
11 years ago. What am I talking about?
That's so long ago.
The movie came out in 2016, I think.
Yeah,
so
the movie
it wasn't
came out in
that
2016.
Far after.
So at least we haven't crossed the 10-year gap on that one yet. So it's okay, boys. We don't gotta feel like we're old. I believe it. Well, how many chapters was it? 60 chapters, or give or take? 64 chapters.
64.
But there's like chapter 1.5, and it's just like...
Yeah, there's some weird stuff in there. There's like a side story too. I don't know. Did you guys read that?
I didn't
About
read it.
Yuzuru?
What?
Yeah, there was like a little side story chapter.
Yes, I skipped it. I was
You
on the time
didn't
crunch.
miss an insane amount. I think
I was on the time
it was
crunch,
about
I
how
was
Yuzu,
kinda finishing
like,
it.
why she cuts her hair, but I could be wrong on that.
Oh, no, I think that's the main story.
That might be in the
Yeah,
main
that's in
story?
the main story.
Okay.
That was in the
Yeah.
the books. I read it with the box set. So yeah, that was main.
Okay.
That was in the...
I
but
forget.
I
I know
know
I
in one
read
of
it,
the
but it was about
volumes,
Yuzuru. It
at
was
the
about when they
end-
were kids.
At the end of the volume, there's like a side story. I
Um,
think it's the end of volume 4 or 5?
yeah, it's around that mark.
I have
Then
it
maybe
up
I
right
just went right past
It's possible.
the side story note and then read it as part of the main story. But I think that's where the main moment that I was talking about where I cried is.
Oh, really?
So
Interesting.
yeah.
Hold on, I'm pulling it up right now, just to like verify what the side
That's what I'm
story
doing, too.
was. I think 32.5
That's
is probably it.
good
Yeah.
chapter. Yeah.
Oh, it's right after the grandma dies.
Mm.
It's a side story about how Yuzu,
Oh.
how the grandma used to teach Shoko how to speak using sign language, but like actually speak with her words, and then Yuzu takes over that role when the grandma passes.
Oh, I did not read this then.
Yeah, it's a really short read, but that was a good one. So I'm glad I brought it up here. But let's try not to jump too far ahead. Let's go back to the beginning. The manga and the movie don't have an insane amount of differences, but as someone who watched the movie first and then read the manga, I was surprised to see that the manga starts at the scene where, oh, not like this. Hold on, all that searching and I got rid of my notes. God damn it! It starts when Shoya goes to see Shoko at the sign language class, right?
Yeah.
In the movie, I believe, I could be wrong, it begins when they're kids. Like it goes right into the
So it
flashback
skips
portion.
a couple chapters.
Kind
It
of.
starts. I think it starts.
It loops
with
back
Ishida.
around to just like the manga does. But I think it's more of a focus on the flashback in the movie as the starting point rather
It's
than
not on Netflix
introducing the characters first. Because the whole first chapter, they don't have the flashback yet, I'm pretty sure. Up until the very end of it, they transition into it.
They have at the end where he's at the bridge with the two that
we learn a lot about Shoya and Shoko even before the flashback. Whereas
Okay,
in the
I
movie,
just
I feel like we
find
don't
it.
know the characters at all before the flashback begins.
Yeah, in the movie, it starts with Ishida and him like doing his bridge scene.
Yep.
And then after that, it flashes back to when they were kids because he goes home and he sells all of his stuff, and then, all that happens. And then when it flashes back to when they were kids, and then as soon as it gets to the hearing aid part, I'm pretty sure that's when it flashes back to the main story for a little bit.
Does
and then
it jump
plays
around?
Out. I think it only does it once to not recenter, but I could be wrong. I could be
Misremembering, yeah.
completely off base. But I'm pretty sure it plays the part where his mom makes him promise not to try to, suicide again, before it goes into the other part about the hearing aids, where she talks to Nishimiya's mom about it.
That's another
But
scene.
I could
that's
be
another scene
remembering
that's
that
different. In the manga,
I need to talk about
Yeah,
that because
that-
that's
that
the one
was-
thing I loved in the movie.
in the movie,
Or not one thing.
Nishimiya's Nishimiya's mom, the Nishimiya mother. What's her name? Hold on, I have it pulled up.
I can pull
Yago.
it up.
She has, I don't want to say a very different character, but she has different characterization in both mediums. In the movie, there's a scene where she like beats up Shoya's mom that wasn't in the manga. That was like a movie exclusive scene. Did I miss that, or is that real?
No. So she doesn't beat her up. It is very, very subtle, and it doesn't zoom in on it at all.
She just slaps
But
her.
it's a cut. No. This was unnoticeable the first time I watched it, and the second time I watched the movie, that's when I noticed it. But when she's going to apologize to Nishimiya's mom about all the hearing aids, and she gives her the money that they owed her, she comes back to Ishida after he meets Shoyo on the playground, or like sitting on the stairs or something.
Yeah,
like
so
that,
you remember
nearby.
when Shoya and Shoko were kids in the flashback, and Shoya sees Shoko at the bridge while they're meeting to like apologize, Jaden?
Yeah, and then he scares the birds away.
Around that scene, there was a scene in the movie. I swear to God that I remember very vividly. Nishimiya's mom is like pulling on Ishida's mom's hair and stuff. Like they go to they're like in a cafe or something, and there's like a bit of a scuffle, and then they walk out. And Shoya's mom just pretends like nothing happened.
I think I think you're remembering incorrectly, because the way I remember it was we don't get any indication that there was any sort of violence at all, besides the fact that you can see a little bit of blood on Ishida's mom's shirt underneath her ear. And then you look at her other ear and she has an earring on. And that implies that because Ishida ripped out Shoko's hearing aid and ripped her, like, ruptured her eardrum or whatever.
She rips out
she
her
rips
earring.
off one of her earrings.
Yeah, I
and
didn't
it starts
misremember
bleeding.
that, I think. Because I just pulled the scene up.
I don't think we see anything in the movie about them fighting. You just see, it's very subtle, but her hair blows to the side, and then you see the blood on her shirt, and the earring is missing. So...
There's not an insane amount of extra differences, but it was interesting to see how they handled the start of both of these wildly differently from each other. At least in my opinion, I feel like those are pretty major changes between the two. But
yeah, because in the manga it sets it up to where you know who both of them are, but you don't know
what happened,
what they were
them.
like to each other. And you know that Ishida is there to apologize because he says it. So in your mind, you're already thinking of him as like, oh, this guy is like, he did something wrong. But in the movie, you feel bad for him at the start because it starts out with his, suicide attempt. And then you're like, oh, why is he doing this? And then that's when it goes to the kid part.
Yeah.
And you see why. So it sets him up in a different light in both of them.
So now that that's out of the way, I just really want to talk about that because that was something that I was thinking about a lot, at least in my first reading session. Again, this is a very linear story. We get the flashback. Shoya meets up with Shoko, the love interest. And then from there, we kind of grab a couple of extra characters each. Like, it's hard to call them arcs. They're not really in arcs. They're more so in, like, this event happens, then this event happens, then this event happens, and this event happens, right? I feel like when you describe something as an arc, there has to be a lot going on to really thing it. Like, you wouldn't call the movie an arc, because the movie, like, them filmmaking, I should specify, isn't really an arc because it happens throughout the entirety of the story. Like, from, like, around Volume 2 or Volume 3 onwards, it's, like, a major thing that's happening. But I feel like in any other story, you would consider that, like, an arc. Like, that's something they were doing, and then they moved on from that.
Yeah, everything that happens is interwoven into the main story of
I think that's why
Nishimiya
it's so hard
and
to
Shoko.
talk about.
I mean,
because it's like we can't just be like, because I don't want to just sit here and like verbatim repeat the story, but at the same time there's no real other way to discuss it without jumping all over the place.
And we could change our angle a little bit, and instead of talking about the story, we could talk about the characters.
Sure,
since
sure,
that's
sure,
what
sure.
focus is on.
Let's talk about the characters for a bit. I'm not gonna. I have some questions specifically about some of the characters, but what do you guys think of Shoya? What was your take on him as a kid, and then his arc throughout the story? I guess we should phrase it.
As a kid, he was an ass. Long story short, that is the easiest way of putting it. But he definitely grows throughout the story.
Yeah, I think his kid persona, and I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh, I have a bachelor's in psychology, so I know everything about
That was
child,
another thing I wanted to bring up, actually. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but his kid self in the manga, I feel like, is characterized way better as someone you can kind of understand where they're coming from, as opposed to the film one. Because I feel like the film one, he was just a little shit, but in the manga, you kind of get, like, why he's doing what he's doing. Like, you can kind of follow his logic that he's not necessarily trying to be a dick to be a dick. He's just a kid.
Yeah, the whole overarching story point or story beat of Nishimiya ruined our childhood because she got in the middle of all of our friendships and all this stuff. That was not in the movie. They never once say... Well, the only time it is said in the movie is when Ueno is on the Ferris wheel and Yuzuru secretly records her slapping Nishimiya.
It's a lot more subtle in the film.
One of the moments I cried.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's not mentioned outright in the film, but in the manga, they make a point. Ishida always makes a point, like, I used to hate Shoko because she took my childhood from me. And then once he gets redeemed, he says to himself, I want to rebuild what she lost. Because now he's thinking about it entirely differently since he's grown up, and he realizes what it's like to be bullied and what type of mindset it puts you in.
Jay, what's your opinion on adult Shoya? Or his arc?
I think he definitely grows up and he matures throughout the story. But I think a lot of it, like, we don't see most of it because there's like a little bit of a time skip between what was the end of when the whole thing happened, and he got Shoko kicked out of not kicked out, but forced to transfer schools, and then to when he's in the senior year of high school. Which
the only thing that happened in between then was him being bullied by everyone in middle school, and then it skips to high school.
But then we don't see like how he grew like during that time. You know what I mean? There's definitely like we understand like he definitely like we know that he decides he's gonna cut everybody off. He's just gonna be a loner.
Yeah.
And I think that him doing that, yes, it kind of leads to like he definitely had thoughts of just committing suicide. But I think it also helped him grow as a person. Especially because you even see it like where the story really starts. It's where he actually decides that he's gonna go and apologize to Shoko for what he did to her in middle school.
This is such a great segue into this question. I'm actually going to pivot from my original plan and start asking some of my major questions that I was personally interested in now.
Okay.
Since we're moving away from the flashback anyways, I feel like it makes sense to bring him up now. What was your guys' take on the teacher? Do you think he was a bad person? Because I thought it was... I had trouble discerning it for myself because I felt at times that I understood where he was coming from, and then other times where I was like, okay, he's taking things a bit too far.
Yeah, back when I mentioned it in whatever episode I talked about a silent voice in, I said two things that I knew were different in the manga. I said Mashiba, or I think that's his name, right? The orange-haired kid.
Yeah,
the one
Mashiba.
that Miki likes.
Mashibasa. Toshi.
Yeah, he has a way different or much more prevalence in the manga, as opposed to his 3 lines he gets in the movie. And then the teacher was way different too, because they get to see him again. Those were the only 2 things I knew about the manga that were different. And I hate that guy. Like, he's one step below Ueno for my most hated character in the series.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I thought when they went back to ask him about using the elementary school for everything.
The first or the second time?
And the first time when Mashiba throws the water on him, like, he was out of pocket. He was crazy. Crazy talk. He was basically saying that, like, oh, everyone's right. Nishimiya did fucking ruin everything. Like, nah, bro.
Yeah.
He sucks. Miss Kita is goated. She's the one that tried to teach them all
Yeah.
sign language. She's
Oh, yeah.
amazing.
And that's our introduction to what's her face, Miyoko.
Miyoka, yeah, Miyoko. Sorry, but yeah, I don't like that guy.
I think
He's no
like
good.
at the point where it happens, he kept like telling he kept telling him like, hey, like this ain't cool, like you gotta stop. And Ishida just like, yeah, whatever, and kept on doing it. But like when they go back, he really didn't have to like. Then again, it's what 5 years or something like that. That from when
I
it
think it's
happened.
3 in Japan for high school, so it's like 3 or 4
Yeah.
years.
So that's like he really had to like, oh yeah, I remember you. You were the reason this girl got kicked out. Like, you're the reason. Like everyone hated you. Like, did he really need to bring that up? I don't think it was really like necessary.
I don't think it was middle school. I think it was elementary school that
Oh, it was
happened.
elementary school.
Yeah, middle school is when he got bullied by Keisuke.
Yeah,
and
so it was definitely
all that.
longer than.
They were in
So,
fifth
yeah, it was
grade. Because
about
I like
Yeah.
the way they do
6
shit
years
there
almost.
is weird. Because I know high school there's only 3 years.
Shoko's 18th birthday is like at the end of the manga, and I
Yeah.
think she's 17 for the rest of it. So we should assume that there was at least like 5 to 8 year time skip in between the elementary school stuff and the high school stuff.
Well, they're in their senior year of high school, which means 3 years of high school, and then 3 years of middle
At
school.
least,
So
yeah.
at least 6 years.
And that's a lot of time. That's a lot of time for a student, for a growing individual.
Yeah, and I think the point I was going to make earlier about psychology and the psychology behind Kid Ishida, but in general, just that age group. In my developmental psychology class, we learned a lot about adolescent psychology and the difference between having personal developments and physical developments being kind of intertwined. And there was a lot of stuff about self-confidence and all that, but we also talked about the psychology behind bullying and what that can do to somebody who is already developing. Like, if you get bullied in high school, and this is not to say that this is everyone's experience, but if you get bullied in high school, your brain is way more developed than it would be if you were in elementary or middle school. And you kind of are starting to, or if not, have already gotten a sense of self. But if you're in elementary school and you get bullied, that kind of just becomes your persona and your mindset. And it could be the reason why someone becomes introverted, because they got bullied when they were younger and their personality type is now they shut people out because they're afraid of it happening again subconsciously. They don't think about that when they meet someone new. They're not thinking, oh, I bet this person's gonna think my hair is ugly or something like that. But it's just in the back of your mind because you grew up with it.
I
You know
feel
what I'm
like
saying?
this is a good transition into this. So the reason a silent voice is so, like, personally ingrained in me is I don't think I've ever connected with a character more than Shoya. I feel like the imagery with him placing X's over people's faces is a very personal, like, I felt that going through my own adolescence. I think people don't stop growing as an individual at any age. I think saying that when you're older you're already developed as a person and you already have your things figured out is an excuse. But I think it's an excuse for some people. That doesn't speak to everybody, right? But I'm not going to deny the fact that when you're younger, that stuff is definitely way more impactful for you because you have less of a template to look back on and like compare experiences to, right? Like if something happens to you when you're younger, it's like the first time it's happening, so you don't really know how to handle it, as opposed to when you're older and you have life experience and you're able to be like, okay, this is how I may have handled this situation in the past, or I've seen this situation handled. How should I respond to it? I feel like the teacher wasn't necessarily in the wrong at first when he was, reprimanding Shoya over and over again, and I don't think his intentions were impure at all, but I definitely think he was kind of like, he could have done a better job doing his teacher job, right? Like, he definitely, like, openly is kind of like a jerk to Miss Kita and to some of the students along the way. Like, just to wrap it into my point of I don't think you stop growing as an individual later on, I think he comes around at the very, very end when he says to Shoya that, like, you have some good friends, or, like, you guys are good friends of Shoya. Like, I knew. He said something along the lines like that. And I think that is a good, like, example of that, of, like, a person being kind of hard stuck in their ways and, like, really, seeing something that changes them. That's something that happens in shonen a lot. It just, like, that's a major character development plot thing, is somebody changing after a major event. I thought it would be interesting to bring up.
Yeah, that you made a really good point about being older, but I think that I don't want to say I should say, from what I've learned, that is kind of like a different development that happens personally, because if you're, like, let's say for instance your grandpa or whatever, it just hates any type of music that isn't from the 70s or whatever, and then he stumbles on a band from 2015 and he says, oh, this is my new favorite band, I really like them. You might be thinking, didn't this guy listen to, like, swing music and all that shit five days ago? But that's kind of, it's like he's not changing his views on other things because of his mindset, or he's not changing his whole mindset, I should say. He's changing his view on that one thing because he saw something in that. In a similar vein to where the teacher doesn't change the whole way he thinks about children or, like, elementary school kids. He's just changing his views on Shoya
as an individual,
individually. Yeah. Yes, because that's
his
experience with Shoya
to changing his mindset.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Like the first
his
step.
Experience with Shoya starts, and that's why if something happens to you as a kid and you don't have any previous experience with it
matters a lot more.
You don't know how to handle
it. Leaks into everything else when you're a kid, right?
Exactly.
Like, if something happens and you have no experience with it, it can affect, like, your entire outlook on life for however long it impacts you, and it might even impact you even later. So be nice to kids if you're a kid listening to this. Don't be an asshole.
And if a kid is mean to you and you are another kid, don't be mean back to them.
Yeah, they might have a reason.
They are usually going through more than you're going through if they're bullying. You know what I mean? Not all the time, but most of the time
they might be like a Shoya and not understand what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. They don't understand that it's affecting you, and if you are uncomfortable with it, then you should speak to someone.
I realize I touched on this and I didn't specify it, so let me clear the air. I wasn't bullied when I was a kid.
That's a good point to make.
The whole X analogy thing, that's a whole other, like, mental hurdle for me as an individual. Or if I was bullied, it wasn't in the traditional sense. Like, I wouldn't consider myself as being bullied. I actually think people really liked me.
I think
school,
we were.
But
yeah.
I personally had issues connecting with people that I've worked on.
I think that the story resonated with me in a different way, because I felt as if, and when I was in middle school, I was the freak show. Like, I made some weird ass noises and did some crazy ass things. Like, I whipped and nay-nayed in the back of the class,
I
and
mean, you still do
people
some of this
recorded
shit
me.
today.
Alright, I don't whip and nay
No,
nay
no,
anymore.
I-
but I do
you
make
know,
good
you
noises.
actually do sometimes though. So like,
What?
Yeah,
No, you haven't been in person with
dude,
me since like 2022.
that's not
You
true.
can't
You
say that.
absolutely have. I feel like last time we played
No,
volleyball.
I do. There's no fuck. I do not whip or nay nay. I might emo on people. I might pull out a little like Devon dance or every now and then, or like hit the Club Penguin
The Club Penguin.
emote, but I do not whip and nay. You cannot say I do that anymore.
I'm
That is
I'm
slander.
like grabbing
That's
These
Logan's
bullying.
bullying.
psyche
You're
and just
bullying me.
bashing it into the ground in front of a live audience.
Yeah, you fucking.
No, it's
there's
in a
no
good way.
bro.
In a good way. I see.
Yeah, it's so that was my personality back then, and I didn't let what people said affect me, or people say affect me. But I also think that I was a little bit of Shoya as well, because there are things that I did to other people, not like, fighting. I didn't hit people or say anything crazy, but there were like inside jokes or things that I probably shouldn't have laughed at but did, and I wouldn't say I was a Shoya. I was more of an Ueno or a Miki, because for a while I wasn't looking at it as if I was doing anything wrong, but then as soon as I got into high school, I was like, oh, this is what a healthy friendship or a healthy class looks like when I was in my shop.
That is interesting.
And everything like
That's
that.
interesting.
And I was on the other side of the coin as like the bystander kind of person, where I probably, and it is literally the bystander effect. Like, if you see other people doing the same thing, you don't want to be the only one that does something different. And we actually saw a really cool study about that, and like who would leave a room first if they saw smoke coming under the door. And there was only one person
In high
that
school?
was part of the study. No,
Oh,
not in high
I was
school.
like, I don't remember
But
this.
there's no. I read about this in college,
Oh.
but there's one person sitting at a desk and they're all taking like a test, but everyone else is seated, SEED. So they're part of the experiment, but there's only one person that isn't part of is the subject, and they don't leave the room because nobody else does. So they think it's normal for this behavior. Like, oh, there's smoke coming in the door, but I'm not going to leave the room. There's only one person out of, I think it was 1,500 people that they did this with over the course of 2 years. There was, it wasn't one person, it was 1%. So about 15 people that left the room when there was smoke under the door. They were the first person to leave. And that it just opened my mind to that, because when we're younger and somebody is laughing at something or someone and we think it's funny, we're going to laugh at it. We don't see the wrongness in it because everyone else is doing the same thing.
See,
They're either laughing at it or not saying anything.
I got hit with the bystander effect in a different way. More so of the other person that we would laugh at. I don't think... I considered it we were laughing with them. I don't think it was like that for them in the scenario I'm thinking of.
That's...
And I feel like that's on them to a certain degree, but also on us. Like, maybe we shouldn't have, been kids, but at the same time, like...
we were kids.
Yeah, we were kids. You maybe... I don't know. That's going into, like... Again, we don't have a whole lot of life experience, so we don't really know all that much. Not to say I was the guy bullying. Well, let me clear the air.
We were not bullied or bullied.
Yeah, we were really good kids, I would like to imagine.
There's a word for that. It's called bully. We were not bullied or the bullies. But we
have
did have
similar
experience.
experiences, just not to anywhere near the degree it was in A Silent Voice. And
Yeah,
I think that's
100%.
why I feel like that's why this story resonates with us so well, to a certain extent. And I feel like it can, if it resonates with us, I feel like it probably resonates with a lot of other people too.
Yeah, exactly.
We love Shoya. What about Shoko, the other major protag in the story? How'd you guys feel about Shoko?
I loved her.
Yeah, she ruled.
Me too.
Okay, next question.
She was pretty
Okay.
based,
Okay.
you know.
Okay, how about Nagatsuka? No kidding.
She is hard to
I
get a
think,
read on,
actually,
right? Because she doesn't.
I was gonna say something about that I wrote down, so I didn't forget it.
Yeah, go for it.
Can I
Yeah,
bring
go
that
ahead.
point up? So, back when Jaden was speaking about Shoya, I'm gonna call him Ishida and Nishimiya because it's different. I hate Shoko and Shoyo because it sounds so similar, and if you've never watched or read it, you're not gonna know that we're talking about a different character. So, Ishida going back to apologize to Nishimiya, and he does attempt to do it multiple times. He goes there to apologize, but he's so afraid. Well, one, he gets stopped by Yuzuru the first couple times, but then when he finally sees Nishimiya outside of that, he is a mess because obviously there's so many things going through his head, like, does she hate me, does she not want to be around me, why is she running away from me, this and that. So I kind of feel like the story would have went entirely differently if he had the confidence to apologize to her right away, because I almost imagine it as if he apologized to her and she got that closure from the one person that she may not have shown that she disliked, but possibly did. Because throughout the story, it's revealed that she didn't actually hate anybody because she thought she kept blaming herself for why any of this was happening to her.
He
Hate
does
herself.
flat out apologize to her. No.
At the end.
No,
at the
I
end,
feel
he
like at
does
the
not.
very start he does. I feel like that's part of the reason
I
he
think
brings
it's a half-ass.
the book
He doesn't.
back.
No, because when he's flashing back in his mind in the hospital, he's reminiscing, or he's imagining everyone being together, and he's like, "Oh, did I actually ever truly apologize to her?" And then that's when he wakes up,
yeah.
because he wants to go.
I know what you're
apologize
talking
to her.
about. I feel like that's a part of Shoya's own insecurities coming back to him there. I feel like he does apologize profusely throughout the entirety of the story, but not in a manner that is to his standard of what he, because his standard is he's dedicating his entire life to Shoko at this point, to making amends for ruining what he felt was like her entire life at the time. So in his mind, I feel like there's no real way he could ever apologize without doing something to the extent of that major climax in the story. And that's why he thinks about that there. But I feel like maybe to Shoko, that, like, you can make an argument that he did apologize and he made amends, like, from that first get-go. That moment comes back a lot. Like, they flash back to that a lot, I think, from her perspective.
I don't remember him ever saying that he was sorry.
He might not
But
ever say flat out he's sorry, but just because he doesn't say it doesn't mean he doesn't mean it, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. Like,
Yeah, I get
I
that.
feel like you can
I
make
understand
amends in ways without just having a conversation with somebody. That's not true, but you know what I mean.
But that's what he wanted. That's what he wanted to do from the start, because when they were on the bridge and she told him that she loved him and he didn't understand it, he was like, oh my god, he's just always so wrapped up in his own thoughts that he never says what he's thinking.
Yes.
Same thing on the
yes.
train. He's like, oh, I fumbled the bag. I didn't say anything. And she had to text me first. So I'm pretty sure in his mind, even if he hasn't apologized fully, I don't think she accepted him or she might have accepted him returning the book as the apology, but he never told her how he felt, is what I should say. Even if he didn't apologize. But I think if she got that closure from him apologizing, I almost feel as if she would have committed suicide earlier. Because, and I'm not saying that to be like, oh, you know, this was all she was waiting for. But
I think Shoya being in such a bad headspace, like what you said with her, like, I feel a major catalyst for Shoko attempting her own suicide was that scene where she tried to tell him that she loved him, and he just didn't pick up on it because he was so in his own head.
Yeah, so if he had actually gotten how he felt off of his chest and told
yeah,
her
that is for
the
sure a
truth,
major.
it
would have
would have just been like, that's it. Because him dragging things on and making it, or not making it difficult for himself, but he was having a very difficult time even communicating with her in general, even in sign language. It was just, I feel like the story would have went incredibly differently if he actually knew how to express his feelings, which I'm glad he didn't, because it led to such a fantastic narrative. But
I have something I want to bring up about the movie and the manga again. But Jay, did you have anything you wanted to say about Shoko that maybe neither of us have brought up?
No, I think you guys kind of touched on
Gotcha.
most of it.
I feel like the movie and the manga have different through threads. And what I mean by that is I feel like the main focus of the manga is Ishida. I don't think... Obviously, all the other characters are important, but in terms of, like, what the story the author is trying to get across, Ishida is, like, the main driving force throughout the entire thing, and I feel like we are more concerned about him as an individual than anything else going forward. Just because he's like, he's not even our narrator per se, but he's like our, he is, but I'm doing a horrible job like trying to
he's
say
the only
this,
person whose thoughts we
for
get
the
to
most
see
part,
at
yeah.
all.
But in the movie, I feel like the main focus is on the relationship between Ishida and Shoko, not Ishida himself, which I think was an interesting change, and I don't think that it makes either one inferior to the other in terms of adaptation. I think both the movie and the manga are great for different reasons, but and I think you could get, you know, a fulfilling experience out of either of them. But I feel, I just think it was an interesting choice. I think because the movie had a very specific runtime it had to hit, maybe it just didn't give us as much of his inner monologue as the manga was able to do, and maybe that's why I feel that way. What do you guys think? Do you agree that there's two different ways to view this story?
Jaden, any thoughts?
Well, I haven't
Even just for a manga perspective, if you were thinking about it that way, do you think there's a separation between viewing it in Ishida's the main character versus looking at the friendship group or their relationship as a duo as a whole?
There's definitely different ways of looking at it. Because even like if you just look at it from Ishida's point of view and Shoko's point of view, you know what I mean? Where it's like Ishida, he's like, oh, like his whole thing is he wants to make up for what he did in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's like Shoko's just like one day, hey, look, it's the guy that bullied me in high school, like, you know what I mean? Where it's like with Ishida, he has a purpose, and like his whole purpose is to make up for what he did in the past. But with Shoko, we don't really get that like previous input until like later on in the story, where we find out where it's like she was putting all the blame on herself. Whereas, and then I think Ishida kind of shows her like after the whole thing of her trying to jump off the balcony.
It's definitely,
she was putting too much on herself in that.
Yeah.
Yes, in like there was the whole scene, the Ferris wheel and all that. But it's like she comes to the realization where it's that she was putting all the pressure on herself and like taking the blame for everything when a lot of it wasn't her fault. Like she shouldn't have been taking any of the blame.
Yeah, and because I think after the balcony scene, once Ishida saved her, she switched her way of thinking to, especially came through in what she was writing to Nagatsuka and the group when they were continuing to make the movie while Ishida was in his coma, and trying to get Now to help with the movie and also help or try to tell her how she felt about their friendship with the letter and all that stuff. I think Ishida saving her changed her mindset of all of this was my fault and I am a burden to other people's lives, to me thinking that I am a burden to other people's lives is the biggest burden that I am. Because she never got to express her emotions because she was too busy apologizing for stuff that she shouldn't have been apologizing for. And because she kept apologizing, and now, in this sense, Now is kind of right. Because on the Ferris wheel, she said, you should just get angry. Like, even if you have to write it down, say how you feel. Like, fight back. Don't shelter yourself because you think that you're a burden to people. And initially when I saw that scene, I was like, Now is so annoying. I hate her. Why is she doing this? Like, the slap was a little too far.
Yeah.
But if she had just said that, now, realizing it now, or after reading the manga and watching the movie so many times, Now is right. Because if she was a little bit more, if she stuck up for herself a little bit more, she would be a little bit more confident and she wouldn't think of herself this way, and she might not have been in the situation that she was in wanting to jump off the balcony.
Yep, that was beautiful.
Thank you.
I to the point where I kind of forgot where I was gonna go with what Jaden was saying. Oh, it doesn't really matter anymore, but I was gonna say it's hard for someone who hasn't seen both mediums to like discern the difference between the two.
Yeah.
I think it definitely is just a matter of, you know, what content we got in the movie versus what content we got in the manga that skewed my perspective a little bit. Let's move to Naoka, because you said earlier she was your number one most hated character. It's definitely not mine. I understand why you feel that way, though. I think she is... I don't think she's an annoying character. I think she's a tragic character.
Yeah, well, yeah, I shouldn't have said she was annoying. I didn't think
because
that she
I know
was,
a character that's annoying, and we'll talk about them. But
oh hell, you better not say Nagatsuka, bro.
no, I love Nagatsuka. There's
Okay,
a character in the main 8 that is...
Oh, Miki. It's
Dude, I
Miki,
fucking
right?
hate Miki. Naoka.
Yeah. No, Miki, you're right. Miki is the annoying one. Naoka is... I don't necessarily feel bad for her because she shouldn't be thinking like this, even if her crush was quote-unquote stolen by
She has
Nishimiya
a lot of
coming
her
into the
own
story,
issues.
but...
Like, if we got a continuation for whatever reason, I don't think it should happen. I think the story is perfectly fine as is. But if we did get any sort of continuation, I feel like the number one candidate for some, like, kind of closure would be Naoka. Because she's the one character that we really don't get a solid conclusion to their entire purpose in the story. And I left the story feeling kind of dissatisfied on that front. Of not knowing, you know... Or not having any kind of satisfaction on their end of, like, okay, well, maybe there's something in the future for them. It just kind of ends with Naoka just having to... She doesn't even fully accept Ishida is not hers at that point. She does, kind of, but not to a satisfying degree. She kind of spends her entire purpose in the thing, or in the story, is just being another perspective, pretty much, on the flashback, like, bullying situation. And then being Ishida's, like, her having Ishida as her number one love interest, then being, like, a love triangle for Shoko. And her being such a major player throughout the entire plot, I mean, she does what Toshi does for Ishida. We'll talk about it when we talk about Toshi, but like that, I feel like that alone is enough to like rank them amongst the like most impactful characters in the entire story. Yeah, I mean, Logue just had a big ol' like speech about how she like was technically right about Shoko. So having a character be that important to the plot and then not having them have some kind of closure really upset me.
I think it just stays true to her character, because if
she doesn't deserve closure yet, I should say. I don't think she's gotten to that point as a character, and that's why if we did get a continuation, I would like to see her get to the point as a person where she could have that closure.
Yeah, because she's the only one at the end that isn't accepting of Nishimiya. Well, especially in the movie, because actually, I should say, never mind.
That's not even...
In the movie, she is more accepting of Nishimiya because she learns some sign language, and then everyone's like, oh my god, why did you learn that? And she's like, no reason. But, like, she's trying to play it off like she doesn't want to get to know Nishimiya.
There are
more
moments
or
at the
befriend
very
her.
end where Naoka, like, is getting along with Nishimiya. Like, she's, like, doing her hair and stuff. They're doing Miyoko's hair together or something like that. And then she gets along with Yuzu.
She tells her to stop flirting.
Yeah, but there's like
before the coming of age thing, right?
Yeah, right before the coming of age thing. There's a bit of closure on that front. I guess so. She did get closure, just not in the way I would have liked to see. I feel like there was more to do with her character that we didn't get to wrap up on.
I also feel as if Ishida's mom was I almost wanted to be like, I wanted to oust her after she let Naoko just shut everyone out from going into his room. But then, now that you say that, I think that was part of her closure, was finally getting the time with... That was her being able to make up the time that she lost in her childhood with Ishida. Even though he wasn't awake, she still finally got some sort of, space to talk to him, even though he couldn't hear her, and just express herself.
It felt like when a villain who isn't really a villain gets a small crumb of closure before they die or something in a different manga or a different story. And I feel like she was the antagonist, really, if we're going by like the traditional sense, throughout most of the story. But I don't think she deserved that level of disrespect isn't the word, but like I feel like she could have been given a bit more, because if she wasn't a part of the main friend group, and if there wasn't such a big push for her to be a part of the main friend group, then I don't think I would feel this way. But because we're asked to see her as a major player in the story of not just a villain, but like a character that these other characters care about and have relations with, that it feels weird that her only closure is she gets to be with Ishida for a few days. I think like literally 2 weeks. And then that's it. And her character, I would say she is the most interestingly handled throughout the entire story. Because she was hardest to get a read on, I feel, throughout most of it. Besides maybe like Toshi. Or Shimada.
He was easy, bro.
But she was basically like okay. This is an interesting topic, because she is essentially just Ishida. She's doing the same things as Ishida throughout most of the story. And Ishida, as a character, because of his character flaws, won't accept what she's doing. And a major part of Ishida's character throughout the story with Naoka as a character is coming to accept that what Naoka is doing is the same thing as Ishida, and he needs to, open up more and accept that. He just keeps pushing it back and back and back. Naoka is one of the only characters throughout the entire story who has an X over her face, who constantly talks and is around the main group over and over and over again. I feel like in the movie they didn't do that as much justice. There is a scene where the X goes back on Naoka, I think in the Ferris wheel, that whole carnival section.
Yeah, when she tries to get him to go face to face with Casey,
but
again
it doesn't.
At the...
It doesn't have nearly as much impact as it did being day in and day out over multiple events. Naoka had the X over her face for Ishida. There were scenes where she didn't either, which I thought was really interesting. There were some scenes where she just didn't have the X, but then she would say something, and then the X would reappear on her. So it was Ishida was kind of battling his own personality flaw of, does he accept her, does he not accept her? He wasn't sure.
I think her being a representation of him in the past, and the X are his way of saying, I don't want to, or I haven't fully accepted what I did back then.
Yes.
Because she didn't have the X at all after he woke up from the coma, which means that after he woke up from the coma and saw Shoko at the bridge, he finally got to say what he was thinking the entire time. And then that's when they finally started to make up with everybody. He went back to the bridge and he saw everyone and apologized face to face. And, that's when Toshi said, you can punch me if you want to. And then he's like, I won't do that. Because he literally changed in that 2 weeks. That was his chrysalis. And then he became a butterfly, a social butterfly, you could say, after the fact, because nobody had X's anymore.
Not entirely true. He still has the scene at the school festival where he has to fully accept it.
He has to. Yeah, but
I get where you're coming from. He's more willing to change than he ever has been, and that is enough to push him out the door. Jay, do you have any words on Naoka?
She was definitely I don't know how to explain it, but she always had feelings, because she pretty much confirms this for us, that she had always had feelings for Ishida, but it's there was all this time that you could have acted on it. You don't live far away from him. It's you could have taken charge and you could have been the one to ask him out. But then it's then Shoko comes back into their lives, and then it's all of a sudden that's where she kind of decides, she kind of just gets jealous at the end of the day.
That is her entire persona. She's just jealousy.
Yeah. But still, I get it. She wanted Ishida, but then again, it's her fault. She never, tried to, I think it's just the whole thing with how society is. It's the guy's gotta ask the girl out. Listen.
That's a good point.
That is a very good point.
I feel someone just ask him out. It don't matter.
Like Shoko did. She told Ishida that she loved him.
Yeah.
And granted,
that is a major difference between
but
those two characters, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Shoko actually
she got some balls.
Reformed herself. Yeah, she gained the confidence that she needed by hanging out with Ishida to realize that she shouldn't just keep saying, or she shouldn't just
stay quiet,
not talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Did it backfire? It kind of did, but that's not the point. At least she
figured out what the things were for.
Yeah.
The flower pot.
Yeah.
Decorator.
yeah. Finally at the end. Let's move on here. What do you guys feel about Yuzu? I loved Yuzu. Yuzu was one of my favorite characters in the entire thing.
not gonna lie,
Speaking of
I
Yuzu.
thought
Oh, you go.
Yuzu was actually a boy at the beginning of it.
Yeah, well, me and Logue already
Not
knew.
watching the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even it was in the movie too.
Yeah, they
He
do
got
that
the
same
vibe.
bit in the movie. They do the same.
But it's a lot more apparent seeing her and hearing the voice.
Yeah.
And seeing her in motion that you don't get the sense that it's a guy. And also the fact that on a page it's harder to make her look shorter than everybody, but like she is tiny. Like she's shorter than Nagatsuka, and you can tell in the first couple scenes that happens.
The manga also, before it even flat out, like before we get that reveal, like the official reveal that that's the case, that she's Shoko's sister, that there's multiple hints that she's not either, like maybe not that she's not a guy, but that she's related to Shoko, right?
Yeah.
Like she shows up at her house, she's taking baths with them, the mom's talking to them like they're siblings.
Yeah.
There's definitely a lot that you could pick up on this well before it ever gets told to Ishida and Nagatsuka. That scene was, as fucked up as it was funny. It was a funny bit where they took her to the bathhouse and she was like, "Ah, get me out of here."
That was not in the movie.
No, that was not in the movie.
I
don't remember how they revealed it in the movie, but it was not as impactful.
It was after they were in the park with Maria, and he saw Yuzu in the slide, and it was after
that makes sense.
She ran away, and then she went to his house, and then he's like, "Oh, don't you want to tell Nishimiya where you are? She might be worried about you." And then she's like, "I have something to tell you." And then he's like, "What is it?" And she goes, "I'm not her boyfriend." And then he's like, I think he's like, "What? So you're like her cousin or something?" And she's like, "No, I'm her sister." So yeah, he doesn't know until the slide.
Yuzu, I liked Ishida and Yuzu's relationship throughout the story. Yeah. I thought that was a really fun dynamic between the two. It was just kind of like as if those two were siblings themselves, like just kind of like helping her out homework and stuff, and like she's just hanging out at her Ishida's house all the time. It just felt natural. It was cool.
My favorite part about Yuzuru's character is the fact that she only takes photographs of dead things to show Shoko
not to die. Yeah,
she shows Shoko what it looks like when something is dead, and how I don't want to say grotesque, but I mean that's how the mom describes the photos. But she basically just wants to deter Shoko from committing suicide, and this brings up the point, the panel that made me cry.
I figured it was gonna be this one.
That actually makes a lot of sense now. Okay, I was
when
like really confused about that.
Did you might have, they do flat out pretty much say that's the case of why they're taking the photos, but it was like you had to vaguely read between the lines to figure it out.
Yeah. But the panel or not the panel, but the whole page where Yuzuru says, "Do you know what Shoko said to me when she came home like soaking that day because she got pushed into the pond outside of the school?" Or she didn't get pushed. She had to jump in to get her notebook.
Actually, this is not to thing again, but the whole bit with the notebook, was it supposed to be a rug pull that the book that Ishida gave to her was the book that she left that day? Because I could have sworn what it was Ishida found the notebook. Like, I didn't even really put two and two together until the scene you're talking about, Logue. That notebook was purposefully left there by Nishima. Like, she just decided she gave up that day. I thought it was more like Ishida just found it and was like, "Oh, man, I remember this," kind of deal.
No, it's when Keisuke and the other guy push him into the pond during middle school, and he comes out of it and it's on top of his head, and he pulls it off his head, and he's like, "Oh, this is Nishimiya's," and then he keeps it, and then that's why he wants to give it back to her before he commits suicide.
I never even,
that was such a
cool like plot revelation to me, that he ends up like that having such weight for Nishimiya, and then that is such an early thing that happens in the story, and this is a resolution we're getting so close to the end of it. The payoff was insane.
Yeah. It's basically both of their reasons, but in their opposite reasons, I should say, because it's Nishimiya's way of showing that she gave up, and it's Ishida's way of showing that he still cares. Or he definitely still cares, but more of showing that he wants to make up for what he did.
Yeah.
Because she has it up until a certain point, and then once she leaves or transfers schools, she doesn't see it, and he doesn't see it because he just forgets about Nishimiya entirely until he gets pushed in by Keisuke, and then he remembers what happened that day, and then he finds the notebook and he keeps it because he wants to give it back to her, because now he understands what she went through because of him. And when Yuzuru says, "Do you want to know what she said to me the day she came home soaked?" And it was the panel of Nishimiya kneeling on the ground, crying, saying, "I want to die." Like, oh my god, bro. I had to put the book away. I couldn't read after that.
That was I felt like I ruined the impact of that scene because I kind of already guessed that's where that was going. A little bit.
I mean, I guessed it too, but I didn't think we were actually gonna see that.
Yeah,
in
I
the
didn't
manga,
either because it doesn't happen in the movie. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but damn, that blew me away.
Yuzu's based. Her character. This, in the lens that this is a character study, a silent voice in general.
Mm-hmm.
As a writer, I am so thoroughly impressed with how hard the story is carried through so many different perspectives across the entire runtime of the story. Because normally there's so many other outside factors. There's the world building. There's, maybe a catalyst for certain things to happen. Maybe a character will come in who doesn't have an insane amount of lore yet, who will have something happen to the characters to cause conflict, and then maybe we get some resolution to the character who did that later, or like the event that did that later. This just felt so natural the entire way through. All the characters, like, you could view the lens of this. I mean, guys, I don't know if you're watching the runtime of this episode. We're already at a minute.
Yeah.
Why do I do that every time?
Yeah, bro.
We're already at an hour.
We're already at a minute.
We're already at an hour 30 on the
I
recording, and we're
I
not
took a peek
even
at it.
halfway through the main cast.
I don't think we should go through all of them.
I want to. I
I
want
think
to
we should
because
just start speeding it up.
Shit. Okay.
no, I want to because this is unless Jay, you have reasons that you need to.
Nah,
Well, he can dip
fine.
halfway through if he wants to,
I'm
but
fine.
I'm sure we don't have anything to do.
Yeah, I want to really dive into this because this is a story that's really personal to me. I've thought about these characters a lot, and I'm now old enough to really see not just the story but the nuances in it, all the small moving parts that make the story work. I just think it's incredible. It's incredible that we're not even halfway through the main cast and we've already discussed so much. But it'll probably start moving quicker, to be fair.
Well, yeah, we got the main three characters out of the way pretty much, and Yuzuru is the first actual almost side character technically. But you brought something up that you said that it being a character study, it doesn't have to focus on world building, and I think the best example of that I have ever seen, Silent Voice is really good about only being about the characters, but the single greatest, and it's not an anime or a manga, but the single greatest piece of media I've ever seen that is only lore and just complete character-based, personality-based story is The Whale. with Brendan Fraser. I don't know if either of you have ever watched that movie.
No, this is new to me.
But it only takes place in his house. That is the only setting
Oh,
in the
I know.
entire
Yeah,
movie.
I've
It
seen
never
like
shows
memes and stuff of this
anything.
movie.
But although the memes might be funny or whatever, I haven't seen any of them, but the movie itself is so profound and like actually it's so thought-provoking. We gotta watch it. But anyway, that's like top tier world, no world building, no whatever. It's only based on characters. And then A Silent Voice is the manga equivalent of that, because it never focuses on where they are either, unless it's like, oh, we're at school. But it never has to go outside of the characters' minds.
Yeah, there's small amounts of world building because again, you can't really tell a story without it. It's just like a pivotal building block. To the point where if you're trying your best to not use any world building, that in of itself is world building, because you're now trying to just subvert you're going out of your way to ignore a pivotal thing, and again, it's a subversion of the genre, and that is in essence using it as a vehicle, just the absence of it. But in this, it's used so sparingly that like when it is used, it's so simple that it's not really noticeable. Like I wouldn't say any of the major settings or anything that are so like that nowhere really sticks out to me as a place that is too far from reality. That you couldn't just like anybody trying to write a story couldn't just come up with these places. Like the main character's house, his elementary school, his high school, a bridge. Like none of these spots are entirely unique. It's what the characters do in these spots that makes them what they are.
I kind of feel like the bridge is kind of just like, is it a metaphor?
Symbolic.
It is
Yeah,
definitely
symbolic.
symbolic. Absolutely, yeah.
Of I don't know how to explain, but like them pretty much coming together. That's the way I see it.
Like
Without that
especially after the
bridge-
coma.
Without that bridge, there would be no friendship. There would be no Shoko and Shoya.
And when Ishida is jumping off the bridges, it's because he doesn't want to connect with anybody.
Exactly.
A ball
Or
bang.
because he wants to help somebody.
But that
My English
That-
teacher would
that
love
one time.
that one.
he only jumped off the
Shout
bridge
out
one time.
Miss Griffith.
We're not talking about Miss Griffith. Let's move on.
We have 4 major
Correct.
characters
4
left.
major characters. I want a part of me still wants to talk about Yuzu, but like I don't really know where else to go with her character.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Besides, I really liked her. I
The
guess we
whole
can
thing
talk
of her
about the
cutting her
grandma
hair was
briefly.
Pretty cool though.
The grandma bit was awesome.
Yeah.
Oh
It
my
was
god,
short,
wait.
but-
The scene that they left out from the movie that actually was so cool was after Ishida finds Yuzuru in her funeral outfit, before he even realizes what happened, there's a scene that plays where there's a white butterfly with one black dot on it that lands on Yuzuru's pinky, and that butterfly is a symbolic, or it's just a representation of the grandma, because the grandma has one mole on her cheek. And when it shows the scene of, because you don't know that the grandma died yet, so when it shows the scene of the butterfly landing on Yuzuru's pinky, and then Ishida's like, yo, what's up, Yuzuru? Like, what's going on? Then you find out after the fact that she died, and it's like, oh my god, they foreshadowed that.
Yeah, that is a
it was
movie
so
exclusive bit for sure. But that was appreciated. That was a good moment. That is one of the most. I don't want to say it's one of the most memorable in the manga, but in the movie for sure. Like they did that very tastefully. That is one of the like events in the movie that sticks with me the most. Uh,
All right, well, Grandma's done.
Wait, I feel like Jaden
no,
was
kidding,
saying.
I'm
Jaden,
kidding, I'm
did you
kidding.
say anything
I'm
else?
kidding. I'm kidding.
Before we went off on a tangent
it
with
wasn't.
Grandma.
It was about Yuzu.
Yuzu, yeah.
The whole sequence of like how like the whole reason of her cutting her hair.
Mm-hmm.
That was like it was a pretty. It pretty much showed that she did it was for Shoko because the mom was like, yeah, I want her to look like a boy, so she gets bullied for that and not for being deaf. Like, by the way, side note.
Her mom is
Them-
interesting.
Yeah, I don't get her at all. Like, you're supposed to like want what's best for your children. She pretty much said, yeah, she's getting bullied for being deaf. Nah, let's have her be bullied for having short hair and looking like a dude.
She is in a similar boat as the teacher where what she's doing isn't necessarily bad, or her intentions aren't necessarily bad, but she's flawed, and she's doing things... Do you want to know why Naoko and her clash at the end of the story and literally fist fight? It's because they are very similar characters in terms of character flaws.
Well, I mean, I don't
They-
think that's why she really just shows up and Naoko's
No,
out
but
here,
the
like, beating up her
reason
daughter,
the writer
like,
makes them meet for a reason, and I think the reason is to show that they are like they're not that different. If another character saw Naoko doing that, I mean, we see it, right? Miyoko Sahara doesn't fight Naoko when that's happening. Shoko doesn't fight Naoko when that happens. Shoko's mom, an adult who should not be doing that, does. And I feel like that shows the same kind of character flaw of fight.
they're all adults by that time, right? Or close to. She was about 18.
Around that range, but I don't think like a 40-year-old should be beating up an 18-year-old. It's probably not kosher.
Self-defense.
Yeah.
It's not her
Yeah,
wrong.
it's also proven that, well, not proven, but I should say, you are more inclined to dislike the people that are more like you.
Thank you. I was
than
thinking that as I
unlike
was
you.
talking, but I couldn't find a natural way to bring it in.
There's been tons of studies done on the people that one person disliking another person, and they find out that more than 50% of that person's personality traits are similar to, if not match up with, that person. So the mom and Ueno fighting literally was just the author's way of saying these people hate each other because they are so much alike. And I guarantee you, the mom saw Ueno beating up... Actually, I'm like 90% sure. I don't guarantee. There's no guarantees in assumptions. But
Her fighting Naoko is because she cares so much about Shoko. She wouldn't do these things, even if they're bad. Like, they're being done with intention of she wants to protect her child. I just want to clear that up, I guess. Because I understand where you're coming from, Jay. Thinking that she's like a confusing character. But I think it's in the vein of she's so passionate about what she wants to defend, or like what she cares about, that it ends up hurting her and the others around her. Similar to Naoko. Or Naoka, rather.
it also gets brought up at the end where Nishimiya doesn't know what... She's like, I can't decide what I want to do.
Yeah.
Whether I want to do my own dream or what my mom wants for me. And then Ishida is the one that says, you should do what you want to do. So she still is thinking like how she did when she was a child. Like, oh, maybe my mom does know what's best, but I kind of don't agree with what she's saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. So, we got a couple of characters out of the way there. Now we're moving in... I don't want to say the lightning round, but I don't feel like we have an insane amount to say about the rest of the characters. Maybe a couple. Let's...
I have a lot to say about one, but that's it.
I have a feeling I know who it is, but we're not going to jump to that, maybe. Miki sucks. I hate Miki so much. Let's get that out of the way.
Yeah, we don't... let's just not even talk about Miki. Don't give her the
No,
spotlight. Haters.
So I have to, unfortunately, because my second major question and my only other question I wrote down for this episode is if you had to take out a character from the main 8, and I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory who the main 8 are. Do we have any questions about that?
No.
Let's see. Miki, Satoshi, Nagatsuka, Miyoko, Naoka, Nishimiya, Ishida, and...
I count Yuzu.
Yuzu. Yeah, Yuzu, sorry.
Um,
Yeah. Main 8.
I personally would cut Miki if I had to cut someone from the main 8 in
She
the
doesn't really
story
bring
in
anything.
general. Thank you. That's how I feel too. I feel like she doesn't do anything that couldn't be done a different way with the other 7 characters.
Yeah.
I
think
understand
Her
why
only thing
she's
is
there.
like, oh yeah, I have a crush on
On Toshi.
yeah. That's pretty much any sort of importance I've got after the fact that like, oh yeah, she was the only girl that like wanted to learn sign language,
The only
and then she like disappear too.
That was Miyoko.
That was
That's
Miyoko.
not
Yeah,
even
that's
Miki.
Miyoko.
Miki
is the blonde
is the
kid
one that
with
likes
the
Satoshi.
glasses.
Miyoko was the one
disappeared.
that was in the same school as Ueno after the time skip.
She's
Yeah,
the
but
like class president, like.
Yeah. What I'm saying, so Miyoko was the one that disappeared from the class because she was in that class too.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I have a question, but then I'll ask that once.
No. What's up?
No. Once we get to her, then I'll ask the question.
Okay.
It makes more sense. It
Okay,
would make more
fair.
sense then.
Then I guess to say again, Miki just doesn't bring anything to the table that changes anything really about the dynamics of the characters.
She has that one thing where it's just like, yeah, I'll learn sign language, and like, cool. It's like,
Miki doesn't though. I don't think.
no,
That's
not Miki.
Yeah, that's not Miki. That's Miyoko.
That's Miyoko.
is it?
Yeah,
Yes, Miyoko is the one that says to Miss Kita, "I'll learn sign language," and then Ueno goes,
Yeah,
"Oh,
Ueno
yeah,
and Miki
stop
bully
trying
her
to
out
earn
of the
those
school."
brownie points."
Oh
Yeah.
shit!
Because
Yes.
they call her ugly. They say her clothes suck, and they say,
The
"Way to go."
only thing
scoring
I
those
can
brownie
think of
points.
narratively as like a function in the story that Miki brings to the table is giving someone, or like having a character for Naoka to bounce off of during certain moments. Other than that, really nothing. Like Miki is like such a like all over the place character emotionally that she kind of like is either fighting with Naoka or on Naoka's side, but outside of that, in like giving Naoka a reason to like be mad sometimes or to like, you know, settle down sometimes, she doesn't do a lot. Like Nagatsuka is the Miki role done infinitely better in my opinion of being a anchor character for another character. They just have so much more likability to them. And not that we're supposed to like Miki, but it's just like she doesn't... If I'm upset that Naoka didn't get any closure, I'm upset that Miki has no closure. Like, there's no closure to be had with that character.
Yeah. It's probably. I think for me it would just be, oh yeah, they started dating, like, or no.
Yeah, it's like you don't even care. It's like, cool. Like,
Yeah,
I'm glad you got what you wanted in
initially-
the end, lady.
I was gonna say initially that if we're going from movie to manga comparisons, technically Satoshi is the least impactful to the story
Yeah,
because
they
they made the
cut
movie
a
work
lot.
without him. But after reading the manga, he is up there. Like he's in my top
Insanely
3
important
of the
character
main
in the manga. Yeah,
of the main
that
8.
is like the
Yeah.
movie's biggest sin. I think is cutting so much of Satoshi's character.
His lines in the movie consist of, "Hey, I'll be your friend," or "I want to be your friend," and then the very next line he says is like, "Oh, Miki, I like your new haircut."
They
then,
use him
and Ishida's like, "Why'd you change your hair?" That's basically
in
it.
the movie. He's more of a stepping stone, like a ramp, to show how fast Ishida as a character is progressing before he crashes back down after the Ferris wheel stuff. And then after that, the bridge stuff. Like, it feels like a very rapid progression up until he sees Shimada at the Ferris wheel stuff, and then the crash out at the bridge Toshi is just kind of like a little placeholder there for the pacing of the movie, whereas in the manga, he's so important to Ishida's own character. He's such an interesting... I thought it was interesting that he was a stand-in for Shoko. I was not expecting that at all. That actually, like, considering I felt like I knew this story inside and out going into it, that was a big surprise for me. I wasn't... I think that was a part of the movie, but it wasn't nearly as fleshed out as it was in the manga.
Yeah.
And not to say that it is fleshed out in the manga either. They don't touch on it that much, but they touch on it enough for it to be a part of his character. And, like, what he represents.
Another big part of his character is the fact that he's basically the only one that ever mentions, like, plans about the future.
Yes.
Prior to them graduating. He's the one that makes Nagatsuka think about being a director, and he also reveals in the manga that he was bullied when he was a kid. And that makes... See, this is what makes it so much more impactful when Ishida talks shit about him on the bridge, because in the movie, you don't know his thoughts about bullying. And the whole, like, tension scene where he was talking to Ishida about bullies, and Ishida was contemplating whether he should tell him or not, further cementing his unwillingness to say what he's feeling, because he's all in his head, and he zones out, and he doesn't even realize Satoshi's still talking. Satoshi is he's like, he fills everybody's role, not everybody's role, but he takes the place of a lot of characters. Like, when he's questioning him about the bullying, he's acting like the teacher. When he's talking to him about the future plans, he's acting like Nagatsuka. And when he's talking to him about Miki and liking Miki, he's acting like Naoka. So there's a lot of... He's just like the all-rounder, basically, with fitting into scenes.
In a good way.
With Ishida.
Like...
Yeah, exactly.
In the movie, I don't think his role in the movie was necessarily bad, like I said. Like, it served a purpose, but I would understand if somebody read the manga and then watched the movie when it came out, like, excited about the movie. I could totally see them being pretty pissed off about how they handled Satoshi in the movie.
Yeah, 100%.
I will say, since we kind of pivoted naturally into talking about him, I thought his motivation for being a teacher was a little weird, and I couldn't really get a grasp of if I...
Yeah,
because I wasn't familiar with this version of his character, I wasn't sure where it was going. Like, genuinely, I was like, is this guy a weirdo? Is he like a creep?
Like, so, context. While I was reading it, we were all in Discord together. When I was finishing up the story, and I'm like, bro, this guy, they're kind of saying some crazy ass shit. Like, because this whole thing about wanting to be teachers is because he wants to watch his friends' kids grow up. Pretty much, like, he wants to be their homeroom teacher.
In the sense of he wants to be what the teacher from the past couldn't be, and, like, actually protect kids as opposed to...
Yeah.
You know, just kind of being a passive bystander.
I don't know if that's, like, a bad translation, or...
Yeah,
like...
it doesn't really come across that way sometimes. I don't even think it's a bad translation. I think it speaks more to Satoshi's few character flaws that we do get to see in the time that we get to spend with him. Like, I feel like, you know, when you think of why he got bullied and stuff like that, he kind of has a mental hurdle of not fully understanding what people are, like, saying sometimes. Maybe I'm reading too deep into that, but, like, when he like, shaves his eyebrows, people are making fun of him when he has the eyebrows, they're making fun of him when he doesn't have the eyebrows. There's just, like, a disconnect between him and other people. And I feel like that motivation, and him wanting to change his motivation towards the end of the story, like, him being unsure, I think speaks a lot to, like, why that came across as so weird to us reading it. Of why does he this feels like an odd thing for him to bring up in the way that he's bringing it up.
See, I thought about it in a completely different way than you guys did, because when I first saw, actually I should specify, initially I was thinking, oh, it's cool that he wants to be the person that his teacher couldn't be. And then after that, in the scene where he said, I want to watch my friends' kids, see who my friends' kids are, to see what kind of a parent they are. That was I feel like what shifted.
I don't even remember that.
Yeah, he says, he's like, in the same scene where you were saying, he said, I want to watch, or I want to like prove to them, or not prove to them, but be the person that my teacher wasn't. He also goes off and says, I want to see my friends' kids grow up so that I can tell what kind of a parent they are, or see it. He says something along the lines of either what kind of parent they are or what kind of a child they're being raised to be, something like that. And it makes it seem to me like he chose this career path at first, at the very beginning, of his own experience, and he wanted to make a difference. But then after he realized all this stuff about how he was the subject to all the bullying and everything like that, he shifted his thinking after getting a little bit older to, oh, well, I might have just been doing it out of spite instead of trying to make a difference for the children. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he came around to the fact that he thought about it in a mindset where he shouldn't have made that his future plan, which is exactly what we all do as kids. Like, I wanted to be a vet when I was younger because I liked animals, and then now I am going to my master's program for social work. So, not a vet, and I don't even want to think about being a vet right now. So, it's like, he definitely chose that career path because of for one reason, and then he immediately switched it once he realized that it was kind of a self-centered reason, almost.
Yeah. Well, I feel like out of the entire cast, he is the most, like, I don't want to say mysterious, but if we had to, like, put somebody up on a pedestal as this is the character that is the most vague and like interesting in that sense, it's definitely Satoshi. Like, it's hard to get a full read on exactly who he is as a person by the end of the story. But I liked him. I liked him all the same. You said he's like your top 3. I have to agree. He was one of my favorite characters throughout the entire story. Just because I thought the way he made Ishida uncomfortable was really interesting. Just like,
yeah,
not asking so many, or like, it's not that these questions are, directed at Ishida, but Ishida himself, his like insecurities are making it feel like they're directed at him. That whole segment was really that was written very well.
I agree.
All right, Miyoko. Let's clear up the air.
Yeah.
Aiden. What the fuck?
Aiden.
I'm tired. It's 12 o'clock. Jaden.
Yeah.
What was your question about Miyoko? Because now I'm curious. You got me cooking. You got me curious.
Do we ever find out, like, what actually happened to her?
Yes.
Like, why she disappeared?
Yeah,
I don't remember.
we did.
She got bullied out of the school.
Is that... So she just disappeared, but she
she's
came back
just-
for graduation?
So,
That's why I don't understand.
there is a clear way to understanding her character, but it is split across a lot of different events in the story. So, do you remember when she texts Ishida, what should we do about this situation? How do we fix this?
Yeah.
Her character, and Logue, feel free to jump in, because maybe I got the wrong read of her, but I feel like her character is more so her major insecurity is that she's just unsure. She is the biggest bystander effect of all time because she is so unsure of how to handle a situation that she collapses in on herself and wants to just run away at the first sight of trouble. She is that, like, she is not the 1% of the analogy or like that study Lowe gave about the smoke under the door. She is the people staying in the room and not wanting to. She wants to make a difference. She wants to say, hey, there's smoke under the door. What do we do? But she struggles so much to, make that known, to like reach out and help. Like, she doesn't go to Shoko at any point, despite always wanting to. She's making an effort behind the scenes that entire time she does. She learns sign language. But she can't get herself to take that final step towards Shoko. She gets bullied in, like, within, like, what was it? It was like a day or two, she's already gone. She just can't handle the pressure at school. But, again, it's not anything bad against her character. I think that was, like, our first signs of it. That's how she handles confrontation. That's why when Naoko and Nishima's mom fight, prior to that fight breaking out, when Miyoko stands in front of Shoko to, like, stop Naoka, that is, like, her big closure moment. She was this character who would always run away and just not know how to handle a situation, and just not even that she doesn't know how to handle a situation, she's too scared to handle the situation, to becoming a character who will stand up and protect her friends, and she is now acting on those impulses. Did I clear the air for you, Jay? Or did I jump too far? Her character's hard to understand, I think, because again, her understanding her character takes, like, having to be paying attention for every scene she's a part of across multiple events. You can't get as easy a read on her as you can, like, Naoka or Ishida or Shoko.
Okay.
Bro, I think I just came to a crazy realization while you were, or after you explained that, because I was thinking, actually, I'm going to save this for the end because it kind of like encapsulates everything about the story. So we can go on to our last.
Oh, you have nothing to say about
my
Miyoko.
main man.
I liked Miyoko.
I thought you said it best because she just shows who she is. She's not really in the shadows personality wise. You can tell what she's like. Like, she wants to be competitive with Ueno, but she also doesn't want to overshadow her because then she thinks
yes, I knew I was forgetting, like, a major thing. That's also, like, a piece of evidence for that one.
Yeah. Like, Ueno wants her, or Ueno is still bullying her for trying her best at making the dresses and everything, and then once she finally wins, Ueno doesn't give her any recognition, and then Miyoko finally realizes after winning the competition that she is worthy of something, and she doesn't need Ueno's approval that she's better than her, because she knows she is. She proved it to herself. And that's why Ueno is so mad at her for winning, because she actually went and did something that Ueno didn't think she could do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we can move on to the GOAT. Maria, baby! The best character, Maria and Pedro! That's what we're going to talk about.
That is the best character. She is so adorable in the movie.
Dude, Maria is like...
She's like, I
thought you were dead!
Like, that was so cute.
I kind of forgot going into this that Maria was as major of a character as she was. She's
Yeah,
not even she's a minor character, to be fair,
Yeah,
but
'cause she
she
only appears like at least she doesn't really change much in the story.
yeah, she doesn't impact the story, but she's like a character that's around that I
Yeah.
feel like deserves like an honorable mention. She's like a nice little added bonus to, I guess,
It's
Ishida's
more than Pedro
personality.
is.
Whoa, whoa, what do you got to say about Pedro?
I'm saying he just shows up right at the end.
I like Pedro. Pedro was cool.
And the sister too.
He says like yes, yes, and I think hello, and that's like it the entire.
No, he's
entire
like,
time.
yo, here's your tie.
Here's your
At least
Oh
in the
yeah,
manga.
he does say, "Here's your tie."
And the manga, he's like, he's like, here's your tie.
How do you guys feel about how they handled Shoya's sister? By the way,
They just didn't show her.
I-
They showed her at the end, and
I
then she was
thought it was
pregnant.
fine. I don't really think that
I
she needed to be a part of the story, honestly, because, and this actually goes into the thing that I'm gonna say at the end, because I think every character that was a part of the story filled a role, but aside from Miki, as we have already stated. But every character sort of fit their role, and there were not a lot of other roles that needed to be filled, because when you think about it, Ishida's sister could have technically done the same things that his mom did, like, oh, why did you try to commit suicide? What was
can
that
I admit something
calendar in
embarrassing?
your room?
Before
What?
reading the manga, I thought that his mom was his sister. I think, at least like I don't think while watching the movie I thought that, but from like being so long since I watched the movie, I got wires crossed, and then when I read it, I was like, oh, I was just horribly wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand that.
I think this. I understand why the sister is in the story, because it gives Ishida just a little bit more nuance to his character as to why he acted the way he did. I mean, he's literally the reason why he acted the way he did, right? Like, that he gets his mentality of not wanting to be bored from his sister.
Yeah, but I just think they just.
I feel like it's... My mind keeps coming to the word distasteful. And maybe I'm being a little overdramatic with that. But I do feel like for a character so involved with Ishida's, like, mentality, and, like, for a character who shows up so often, to just be a couple of legs on the ground and, you know, clearly there was a little bit of smexy time happening, and that's all the characterization they get is kind of like, I don't know. I feel like we could have done more with her character. But I also agree with Logue that she wasn't necessary to the story, so there was really no reason to delve in. There was no clear reason to delve into her character for the narrative.
Exactly.
Okay, we can talk about Nagatsuka now. We love Nagatsuka. Good old poop head.
Yeah.
He was
Nagatsuka,
extremely
the main man.
disrespected.
Whoa. Where's that coming from?
The fucking
It's the
film
truth.
festival.
Oh, yeah, the film
Is that-
festival critic.
Yeah.
Oh,
Bro, that...
There's the scene I
What
posted.
the fuck?
Like, I mean,
Oh,
then again, that
you
was
reminded
just
me,
him
I
being
do have
weird.
a thing to share as well. But
But that
continue.
was just him being kind of weird.
What, the one about
With Yuzu,
asking Yuzuru to wear her
Yeah.
uniform for him every day?
that was kind of weird.
yeah, he's
Bro.
a goofball, that's for
He's-
sure.
Yeah,
A little awkward, but
like
He's,
the whole thing where he thought the no from Nayoka, however the hell you say her name is.
Oh,
He
yeah.
thought it was for him, and then they meet up, and then she's like, "Nah, what the fuck?" She's like, "No,
But that
you
sets
fucking..."
her up to be more of a villain.
she's like, "Nah, what the fuck? You sure?
You're
no,
fucking ugly as hell. Get away
you
from me, bro."
ugly,
Like,
you fat, you sure? Like, bro, get the fuck away from me." Who was it that
yeah,
said?
she does kind of.
yeah,
go
she
off.
Was it
does.
her?
Nagatsuka
Was
gets
it
laid
her
out
that
for
said-
no reason. He has like PTSD from it.
Was
But
that
I'm
Yeah,
her that said,
every-
don't touch me. Don't touch me,
No,
you're
that
dirty.
was Miki.
That was Miki that said.
That was Miki that says
Yeah,
that.
Miki.
Don't touch me, you're dirty. That might have been the biggest sin of her character. Because I feel like it's so obvious that she would say something like that to the point that I'm mad that she said it. Because I wanted her character... I wanted a character in the main group to have more depth than don't touch me, you're dirty.
Nah, that's all her depth was.
Yeah,
and
that's why
if you
it's
want to
mad.
find
That's
out
why
more
it's
about
mad.
her depth, then you got to get to know her more. But
There's nothing to know.
I don't know. Hey, that's what I'm saying. Exactly.
God, we're not even
But
talking
yeah,
about her. We're
Nagatsuka-
fucking shitting on her.
Gatsuka, he went through the ringer, and he came out a dry towel.
We love him.
Is that...
That
Yeah.
was a terrible analogy, but like we...
What? Okay, how about this? He got put on a warming rack, and he was a warm, dry towel for when you get out of the shower.
Just as awkward as the thing himself.
Yeah.
As the man himself.
Call him a thing, bro. That's crazy. You
He
just
acts like a thing
disrespected him.
Greatest... you said... you brought him up in your, like...
My favorite, or my goated
side characters, yeah. I agree. He is goated. He does so much for Ishida to move the plot forward in so many moments that I think go unnoticed because it just feels like it's the natural thing to have happen. But because Ishida, like, shuts himself down all the time, it just... okay. I'm not commenting on that. Are you saying that Natsuka kind of looks like the thing?
No. You said.
No, he's just saying, here's the thing.
Okay. Well...
You brought up things, so I just had to.
I see. I don't know. I wish there was more to say about his character besides he was just a good character, but I feel like we said a lot about him already in the goated side characters section or episode.
If I can close off the Nagatsuka, or my thoughts on Nagatsuka with one thing, it would be, when I think of this story happening in real life, the best personality out of anyone, like the person you would want to have as a friend in real life out of this story is Nagatsuka. Like, dude does so much, and even when Ishida's like, bro, you don't even fucking know me, man, even though you know my sister, my mom, my grandchild,
Yeah.
my niece, like, you know a lot of shit about me. He's like, you don't know shit about me, bro. And Nagatsuka's like, yeah, I'm gonna pretend you didn't say that, so fucking talk to me, bro. Like,
Yeah.
he does not care.
He's like, how dare you put that dirt on my name? But
he's actually a friend, and that's like, no, if anyone else is a friend, or if anyone can be personified as a friend, a big friend,
big friend
it's
N.
Nagatsuka. Big friend N.
We love him. So, before we move on to the closing act here, which I think Logue's gonna take charge in, I feel like he has a lot to say. I want to share this panel.
Okay, I like panel sharing.
This was probably the single... If I had to pick one page that stuck out to me the most while reading, it was this one. This hit me very personally because I feel like even past the whole X like analogy metaphor thing that Ishida has going on over people's faces, this hit the closest to home for me. Where I would, like I said earlier, that I wasn't like bullied or anything in school. In fact, I think people really enjoyed my company and like I enjoyed other people's company. But I feel like in reality it was probably more like this, where I would sit there and like just kind of listen to everyone having fun and then tell myself that I really appreciate being with these people without really involving myself. And that's where my own problems stemmed from.
Damn.
This just hit different. And this is a scene we didn't... I think we got this in the movie, but it wasn't...
It was at the Ferris
exactly,
wheel, though.
Yeah,
it
was
here.
at the amusement park. It wasn't in this moment, and I feel like
and
this is the
Ueno
most
had her
natural.
ex.
Yeah.
in the movie version. So it was not as encapsulating as this one, for sure.
So, I knew this episode was gonna be rough for me. Oh, I totally like alluded to it and didn't explain. So, Logue, you said you cried a couple times. Jay, did you cry at all?
No.
Okay, but you
I was
did
on
get
Logan
emotional.
this.
You were shocked.
Yeah, and were you in the Discord call at the time? Because I know I told Logan I was like, I'm not gonna talk more about this until later on. But like
No, he wasn't there
he
yet.
wasn't there yet. So yeah, I had told Logan earlier. I was like, yeah, I like, I was shocked that she went to like, she went home early from the
Fireworks.
what was it? The fireworks to go kill herself. I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
Oh my god, wait, that's another thing about the movie that isn't shown in the manga, but I liked it better in the manga than in the movie. Because in the movie, it has subtitles for all the sign language, and the sign that they always do throughout the movie and the book is matane, or see you later. And when she's like, oh, I'm gonna go study really quick, she doesn't say see you later in sign language, she says goodbye.
Yeah.
And then Ishida says see you later, but in the movie, he like tilts his head and he's like, goodbye, huh, oh well. And then he says see you later. Like, he doesn't really think, he thinks about it, but then he's like, oh, she's just saying it in a different way. But in the manga, it doesn't even cut back to Ishida saying anything. Or like doing, like, he doesn't tilt his head or get inquisitive or anything. He just says see you later.
Yeah.
And she
I
says
picked
goodbye.
up on that too. I also picked up on, and maybe I'm the only one who noticed this because I was really like deep dive. I was thinking about the sign language a lot during this, that like someone who maybe, because in the film, like you said, they subtitle a lot of or all of the sign language in the film. In the manga, there's a scene specifically at the end when Shoko meets Ishida at the bridge after Ishida wakes up from his coma, where Shoko does a bunch of signs and it doesn't get subtitled.
Yeah,
In my head, I was
confused.
like, this is definitely like, if you were reading this week to week when it was coming out and you were like interested in sign language and you yourself started to learn it and then got to this moment in the manga, this was your reward, was understanding what she was saying to Ishida in that moment. And I did not feel an ounce of like I didn't feel like I missed out on it. I was just kind of like in awe that that's something they chose to do in a good way.
And Ishida kind of like summarizes
He does,
what she
but
said
you don't get the whole
when
thing.
he's responding. But yeah, you don't see everything she says.
I just thought it
Yeah,
was.
that was awesome.
To bring it back a little bit though, we got shocked, we got cry. Man, the first reading session, I was doing it at work, so I was just kind of like doing my thing and then reading on the side. This put me in a fucking big depressed stupor for a day. Being thrown back into this world with these characters. It was rough. I wasn't expecting it. I was and wasn't. I already knew. I had said prior in another episode that I knew this story was going to like do stuff to me, but I wasn't expecting it to be in that way. And then on the second day, well, for like the last 30 chapters, it was like cathartic. It was very like relieving and like revigorating to get the closure to all that stuff. Like my depression just kind of like seeped away after that. It was very nice. The story means a lot to me, man. The story means a lot to me. It's nice to I feel like a big part of the reason I read manga, outside of just studying manga for my own work, is to like pay my respects to the people who created these animes that I watched growing up. And to pay respect to something that changed my philosophy on life, really, and like changed how I viewed myself as a person growing up. I think that this is what the podcast is about. I'm very happy that we were able to do this. I think again, I think I said the same thing with Monster. I'm surprised we did something so heavy so early on, but I can't say I regret it.
Granted, this one's wheel spin, we took a
Yeah.
liberty
We
on,
definitely had to wheel spin a couple times,
but I'm very glad that we I think the weekend before this, we decided to add it too. Like, it wasn't on the wheel before we did the next
You know what that's like?
spin.
It's like the at the firework thing where someone calls out to Ishida and he looks behind him and he can't tell who called to him. Like the little like moments of like fate or God intervening. And then that's basically what happened to us with this. I definitely needed to read this again. So I'm glad that I did.
Damn. That was very heartfelt.
Felt like I had to do it justice.
Indeed, you did.
Logue, what is your big thing you wanted to close the episode out on?
So, when we were talking about Miyoko earlier and how she was basically the personification of escapism, or just like wanting to get out of a scenario rather than face it head on, I think, and this is just my own assumption about the story, but the way I see it now, after talking about every character individually, and this is, I'm so glad that we went the character route for this instead of
it was a great pivot, yeah.
Summarizing the story. Every character is a personality trait of Ishida. And the bridge scene makes so much more sense when he talks about everyone's flaws, because they are all flaws that he has. Miyoko is his wanting to run away from his problems and trying to commit suicide. Ueno is his hatred for himself in the past. And when he was in the past, it was a personification of his hatred for Nishimiya. Nagatsuka is his like reformed state, or his friendly personality trait, because he actually can be himself around Nagatsuka without having to worry. Miki is his projection, because she was always saying that other people were bullying when she was also doing it in the background and wasn't making it known to herself that she was, and nobody else told her that she was besides Ishida, because he knew that he also did it. And Shoko is his regret personified, because he puts his whole life into making sure that she's happy, because he deeply regrets what he did when he was a child. Satoshi is his reflection on his life, because he brings up so many questions that Ishida is too afraid to ask himself. But once Satoshi asks the questions for him, Ishida answers them, even to himself. And Yuzuru is like his perseverance to completing his goal of making Shoko happy, because it's also Yuzuru's goal. And I think that's why they meshed well together, because they were both striving towards the same end goal. And that's why they were so helpful towards one another in, trying to accomplish it. So, that was just something that I realized over the course of going through this, is that every single character is one of Ishida's worst traits as a person. And once he finally
I wouldn't
gets to
say
know
worst
them,
traits, just parts of himself.
just traits. Yeah. Well, that's true, because Nagatsuka is Nagatsuka, and
But I definitely agree, and I don't think I ever thought of it that way. But I think that definitely plays a major role, probably in also why it feels like all the characters are so involved. Is because they're so deeply rooted in Ishida as a person that whenever they do interact with him, it feels personal.
Yeah.
I think Toshi nails that feeling the most. Like you said, when Toshi talks to him, Ishida talks back to himself and answers questions without answering Toshi. But like, that definitely, I flying marks across everything you said. I agree.
Let's go. I passed.
You passed. You passed the silent voice test. Congratulations, Jay. I mean, you're gonna have to turn in that open response at some point, buddy.
It's okay, Jaden. You're gonna get a 4.
Okay, I'm over that.
Yeah, force passing.
Well, 4 is the highest you can get
on
open response. So.
I'm an engineering student. I'm used to low grades.
Jesus.
Bruh. Well, I think that leaves us with one thing left to do, right? We gotta spin.
No, not yet. Don't jump the gun. There's one major difference left between the manga and the movie that I really want to talk about. And I think it's a good way to end the discussion.
Okay.
This is the part that tears me up the most, and it's not in the manga. If that panel I brought up earlier is like the one moment in the manga that I felt hit me the hardest, as like that this is like I saw myself in that. I saw myself in the last scene in the movie, where this doesn't happen in the manga. It does happen in the manga, but specifically how Ishida reacts is different in the manga than it is in the movie. Jay, for your understanding, the movie ends at the school festival, where Ishida comes back and he starts to take off the X's of everybody's faces.
Yep.
In the manga, he kind of has a scene where like he accepts it and he smiles. In the movie, it is a like considering what's happening, it's pretty drawn out. Where he walks down a hallway and he cups his ears and then uncups his ears, and he starts to accept the noises of other people, like the voices of other people. And he starts to cry as the X's go away from people. And like he doesn't just cry, he like bawls. He like can barely handle the information he's taking in, like the growth that he's like realizing in himself. And I don't think I cried at another point, but the first time I watched the movie, I 100% cried at that part. I've definitely had a moment myself like that in life, where I just realized something major and I, got to that point. Just, if I had to take a mark away from the manga, I think the movie did that scene better. That crying portion hit me so much harder than it did in the manga.
It was honestly a better endpoint to the story almost. I feel like they should have ended the manga on that as well, and then just had the other part, like the graduation party, be the, not part of the same story, but in the volume. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe as like a side or like a bonus chapter or something. I get what you're saying.
Like, later on in the future, this happened. That type of thing.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like that the movie nailed that for sure. All right. Everyone got all the feels out of the way? Because God knows I did.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's time to spin that wheel.
Is that copyrighted?
I don't know, and let's not bring it up. Let's not do that.
Okay. Let's spin the wheel.
Let's spin the wheel, lads. Okay, I have the OBS capture on the wheel.
No.
Okay, my bad.
It's not copyrighted.
What?
The designs, names, or implementations of such wheels might be protected by trademarks or copyrights.
I see.
Okay,
I was
so
like, what are
it's
you
not
talking
copyrighted.
about?
Assuming not.
Okay, let me take silent voice off of the wheel.
Yep. Did you take monster off?
Show us the wheel.
Yeah, monster's off the wheel. Oh yeah, you guys have to see it too, right? So let me.
Yeah. Gotta stream that.
Okay.
Good stream.
Is there anything that we want to add to the wheel as of right now? Anything catch your interest since the last time we gave it a spin?
No, I don't think so.
No.
All right. Then without further ado, what are we reading next?
Oh my god.
I knew it.
Soccer.
Dude, I thought about it before I spun the wheel, and I was like, I don't. God damn it. Okay. Awashi, baby.
Nah, respin.
Nah,
respin.
nah, we're doing it.
Bruh.
Jay,
I'm
this
kidding,
is
I'm
your
kidding.
on your recommendation, so
Yes,
I'm
it
interested
is.
to see how this goes.
Holy shit, bro! This thing has over 390 chapters.
Okay, so
What?
we
Volume 40.
okay, so we might have to cut it down. We might not do the whole series.
Volume
Yeah.
40.
We're not doing the whole
Holy
series. Then.
shit.
I did not realize there were that many chapters.
Um,
Let me figure out where.
No, no,
this
no,
It started in
season
20.
ends.
It started in 2015 and it stopped in December of last year.
why limit ourselves? We've done 2 relatively shorter series. That's not Monster was pretty long, but 2 like a medium boy and a short boy.
So,
Why not
Um,
take a couple months and read a long one?
well, this
Yeah, you
one's
know
also
what? That'll
so-
help. No. Oh my god, this is gonna line up with Rematch's release.
That's so hype.
We'll read. We'll give ourselves until Rematch comes out to read Awashi.
When is
When
that?
does Rematch come out?
We don't know. Just
Oh,
summer.
okay.
But-
That is crazy. How
If it
many
makes-
podcast episodes would that be? 1, 2, 3, 4,
Like 8.
5, 6, 7, 8. And well, 8 would be May 18th,
The start of
May
summer.
16th.
Almost. Yeah.
Probably like June, July.
So
So 8 episodes. Yeah, sure. I'm fine
I
with that.
didn't
So
know
we'll
it was
say
this long. My bad, guys.
no.
2
I'm
months.
perfectly fine with this, Jay. Don't worry.
2 months.
We'll say May 16th. 2 months on our end. Viewer at home, if you want to read along with us, it's always highly encouraged. Thank you for.
I do have a link to it for you guys.
Thank you. But I'm going to be purchasing it legally because
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we're all doing
Yeah,
that.
we're all
Oh, yeah,
legally
that's right.
reading these.
That's right. I have the link to the Amazon for it. Come on, guys.
There you go. Yeah. Thank you for sticking with us, dear listener. This has been a very deeply personal episode for me. I'm glad to have recorded it with 2 of my bestest friends in the world.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, sir. Is there anything that we are missing, guys? I think there's one thing that we are missing to say to our lovely audience before we end the episode.
Can I say it?
Oh, you can
Go
say
ahead.
it.
Have a good.
Have a good, guys.
Have a good